teacher said this. I'm sure you know that is a lot of being right manager and dealing with the community and everything you do day to day. I'm very willing to teach you.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Hopefully some of the 16 people registered come. This is usually we have like.
There's usually already some people here.
Oh yeah.
So.
Hey, maybe I jinxed us. I said like
Yeah.
I was like.
You jokingly said, hey, if no one comes. You're like, I didn't mean it.
This is fun. You've got all sorts of stuff set up here. Did you make it missing? Oh. I almost forget.
Bio?
You know what? No. I'll introduce myself.
Perfect.
I mean, unless Kimberly's here, I don't ever use my bio.
Okay.
She's then I do. You know what? I'll just pass out pens so people get here.
Hi, welcome.
Tried to outburn our secret.
So, when you record this, then is it like people are like logged in now to watch it, or do you like upload it later? Both. Okay. Because I wasn't sure. We just have one person. I could just like
Clear that they had
the last 2 times we were together, Amanda, we only have one person.
And just get going in a better direction.
At
And he's going,
the-
he wants to, and get out of that.
Yes.
If you're doing a thorough
So
assessment.
I'd rather have a conversation with just one
Best
person
option for you would be a short-term
than
mortgage.
having to do a
The first thing that hit me was,
So we have
we get
some
insane,
lunch, so
we
there
could pay this
are
mortgage off.
BLTs and fries.
How much money?
And then
They figured it out. You have sound.
Look at this,
They
a
found
genius.
it. They found it.
They found the audio part.
So I didn't see it.
Where is it?
This is our home, and no one can.
do you
I don't know that I would have,
BLTs
I
and
don't know that I
Yes.
would have.
Oh, I will be there.
Okay. Look at that, look how funky that looks. It looks like my, it's like social life. Right?
I got
Thank you so much. Look at the miracle that you worked. Okay. Yeah. Look at it. And like, and all the people who are here get free pens. Woo! Aren't you glad you came? And you know what? I like these pens. These are nice. Mountain America does not scrimp on our free pens. That's not lying. They're all $1. Which I feel like is a lot for free pens. So like, they actually like buy very nice pens. I don't know if the branches do.
What's that? These pens?
But these are very nice pens.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we don't buy cheap pens.
Well, we tried to remove branches. We can't though.
I would say, I don't think the branches do because the members take them all. Like, when I used to try, when I used to train at the branches, I felt like all the time I was seeing like branch managers come in with like, just like the generic, like
Big
Walmart,
pens,
like
yeah.
huge boxes of pens. You're being like, yay, pens! And then next time I tried to do it, we're all out of pens.
Yeah.
Because I got it last week.
That's
every single day here. Then at home I have like a million pens.
Drop them in
I know, I'm like, I'm probably the person that takes them all.
Yeah.
I'm actually very careful, right? So in the drive-through, we'll
Yeah.
say, the pen.
Yeah.
I bet that's
And
where a
it's
lot
not,
of them go.
oh yeah, and I don't think anyone does it intentionally, it's not very bad. Like,
Well, if you take it out of the thing, you fill it out, you put it down, you put the thing back in.
Yeah.
Have you ever put the big, like, you ever stuck something at the end of it, like a big gaudy or something?
I don't think I've ever done that. I guess maybe I don't have a problem buying pens.
And it's like, it's not that big of a problem.
Hi, welcome.
Hi.
Go and grab some lunch. They're so cute.
Cass, you may still grab some lunch.
I'm good. I actually
Oh,
told you I had a little bit of a easy morning. My husband made breakfast.
Aw.
Oh.
That's so nice. You might be bringing some lunch back to your place.
I can take some back to the HOA too if you don't want to bring it.
I'm sure. Oh, we never have a problem giving away food.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I hate it. I hate free food.
Don't give it to me again. So the only issue we're gonna have with this is you don't want me to go behind the camera. Can the camera see me if I'm over here?
No.
Okay. The only thing is that with these books, you kind of have to follow along, so sometimes I'm like, where is it? I'm like, here, right here.
That's fine.
Okay, so if I occasionally go
Because
behind.
they won't have the book to look at it, so.
Oh, that's true.
They won't know the difference.
Okay, so maybe you just should record it or something.
Do you want a couple of these books at the HOA office in case someone wants to stop by and get one?
I can take a couple, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a few extras.
How are
Hi
you?
guys, welcome. Grab some lunch.
Grab some sandwiches and french fries.
So yeah, I'll have to walk go back there.
I'll make sure everyone's signs it again.
Okay. Spread out. How are the sandwiches, guys? Did Denny's deliver? Alright, good. What made you think of Denny's?
I had a staff meeting yesterday and I got everyone great slams. And I was like, what, I should do this for lunch tomorrow. There we go.
But you got it from like Sprouts one time too, didn't you?
Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah, just gotta keep variety.
As people come into the lunch and learn, it's different every time.
Well, as soon as these other,
Yeah, as soon as they get
back
back.
in the restaurant, then we'll get started.
Yeah. I'm glad I don't have a microphone because when they train us, like when you're training for presentations, you're you're nervous with anything in your hand because you fidget with it. So I have this so if I ever, so I'm always like trained that if I have anything in my hand, I put it down. But if I have a microphone in my hand, I will automatically put my clicker down constantly. And then I'll just out of habit, and then I'll go to advance the slide, and I'll be like. I do it honestly 4 or 5 times a presentation anytime I have a microphone. So I'm glad I don't have to have one today.
It's much easier on our end if you don't.
I also don't set it down in the same place every time. So I'm like, who has it?
I like to do presentations with the touch screens when it's time.
Do they have that? It's good.
Oh, like the smart screens? Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. We don't get to use those. That'd be cool. Like next one. Oh, they never work that smoothly though. Oh no. It's not like you come up to it and you're like, and then you're kind of like, yeah, or just touch with your finger, one fingertip, not your whole hand. Do it slower, so it's not as cool as you think it would
Otherwise,
be.
it wants to scroll.
Or it goes the 3 slides. You do it too fast. You go back one. So we all just stick with the clicker. See, some technology is better than others. I'm good with it. Manage while we're here just to make sure this video starts. But. Hey guys, welcome. You're welcome to grab some lunch if you guys want to sit
just
there.
sign in, that would be. Sure. I can have him sign at the end.
Okay,
You at the end.
That's fine. At the end.
That way we can get started. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming today. My name is Amanda Morton, and I'm the branch manager of the Daybreak location. And we have Leslie here with us today, who's going to be teaching us all about how to teach your kids about money. So with that, we'll let her go ahead and get started.
Thanks, Amanda. I'm going to use this little stand. Okay. So like Amanda said, my name is Leslie. I worked for Mountain America. This year will be 13 years. I've worked in a variety of capacities at Mountain America. I actually put myself through college working in their collections department, which was super fun. But I don't know about you guys. My parents didn't teach me a lot about money, so I got to learn firsthand from other people's mistakes about money, which was a good education, but it probably wasn't the best education. How many of you guys, your parents talked to you about money? So yeah, okay, so you feel like that you felt prepared as an adult to handle your finances? We had about half the room. Some people are like, yes, other people are like, no. I kind of felt like I grew up knowing that I didn't want to handle money like my parents, but not knowing what the difference was. Like, I knew that was one option. I knew it didn't work great for them. I knew I wanted to do something different, but I didn't know what that other option was exactly. So I got to kind of learn, like, through collections, what other people, like credit card debt, a lot of people have gotten themselves into, or really high car loans. And so we're going to talk about a bunch of those things today. We're going to cover some topics, some really good topics about to talk with your kids about finances, because sometimes we think we're like, okay, we're covering this and this and this, and then some kind of situation comes up and you're like, oh, we didn't talk about that. So hopefully today we kind of give you a little bit of a checklist that you can go through with your kids. You have this booklet right in front of you. The front of it says, life is expensive. Hands of those who agree. All hands should be up. Okay, life is expensive. So Deseret Book, Deseret News is the one who creates these, and we use them because we feel like they're pretty good tools. Although these booklets right here, these are geared toward older kids. So maybe your young adults, teenagers. But the presentation we're going to talk about today, so we're going to talk about this too. Then we're also going to talk about moments that we can use with our young kids to turn those into learning opportunities as well. So go ahead and open your booklets. We're going to start on page 3. Before we do that, we're going to start with a little video.
This is our home, and no one can take this from us.
You know, our crappy carpet that we haven't changed in 12 years that the kids have just totally made gross. We own it!
This was hard. We had $20,000 of credit card debt,
Swipe, swipe, swipe.
and it was going higher and higher because we didn't manage our money. I didn't know the answer. I definitely didn't know the answer.
Feeling sick to our stomachs and feeling a big weight on our shoulders, and we were back and forth talking about things, and he had just gotten a second job.
We tried to out-earn our stupidity, essentially, and that wasn't happening.
When he came in, he didn't know what to do. He was looking for guidance. You know, he was looking for ways that we can help him out.
When I walked into Mountain America, I started talking to Elton and to Alan.
Mountain America Credit Union.
It was clear that they had tools to help me solve my problem and just get going in a better direction.
And his goal obviously was to, you know, get out of the debt. So doing a thorough assessment, I was able to identify that best option for him would be a short-term mortgage.
The first thing that hit me was, we get insane, we can pay this mortgage off. How much money are we gonna move?
$12,500!
Now we can either go to Hawaii, or we can put that on the mortgage. Which one? We were working together, we were attacking the mortgage, shoveling all the extra money at the mortgage. Click that button, boy! One thing that we did was we set up a My Express debit card with Mountain America. In our budgeting, we budget weekly, and we moved that to the My Express debit card, and that made life a lot simpler.
We had this chart we made with our kids. Our kids were very involved with this whole process. And each square on the chart is $1,000. And every time we got to the end of a row of squares, we would reward ourselves with something.
Texas Roadhouse, Japanese barbecue.
A lot of times it was out to dinner because that was a treat because we never went out to dinner. They loved it.
We didn't want our kids to screw up money like we screwed it up for 10 years. So we made sure that they understood what the process was, what each X meant. We set them up on a payment system. They do a lot of work around the house.
They really know the value more of piano lessons and extracurricular activities. Isabel, our oldest daughter, she's 11. She paid for her own horse riding lessons and her iPod Touch.
$300 iPod Touch. She earned every dollar for us.
She did bake sales, she babysat, she cleaned other people's carpets. Like, they're really learning how money
And
works.
sometimes our kids make stupid money decisions, but we let them screw it up with $10 instead of $10,000 when they're an adult.
You do the last
The lesson he taught his children was invaluable. You can't get a better financial education lesson than at the home, and he gave his kids one they'll never forget.
It's really cool to see the people at Mount America like cheering us on.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I appreciate it.
It's moments like this that truly make my job as a manager so fulfilling.
His life was changed by a simple question on how we could help him.
So what do you guys think about that video? As you're all eating, you have things in your mouth. What are some thoughts when you guys watch that?
I like that they talked about their own financial issues with their kids. Like I feel like we just talked about it amongst ourselves, but not so much for the kids.
Yeah, and I guess that's a personal preference, but some people don't even know that's an option. Sometimes people think that, I've heard like in classes like this, people want to shield their kids from what they feel is like a burden of money, when that's just more another lesson they're teaching them, right? It's like, don't talk about money. It is a burden. We're trying to keep this from you. And so kids kind of intuitively get a negative image about money. So another way, like the way the King family did, again, this is just one way that they did, right? Is they involved their kids and they didn't make it something bad. How did they make it fun?
The X's and
Yeah.
the reward at the end of.
Right. I mean, if you saw that, there were 10 boxes on each row. So that was $10,000. So for every $10,000 that they saved, then they went out to eat. So, I mean, that's another lesson, like delayed gratification, working hard something, not getting something the moment that you want it. Those are invaluable lessons that you can teach your kids. We're going to talk about a few more as well. So in our book on page 3, as you can see, it says, hey, grow up. We often ask kids here, because we go into high schools when we do this presentation, we ask them, how many of you guys want to be on your own and free? How many think hands go up for that? Like, everyone's like, yes, I want to be on my own and free. And then we ask them, how many of you think being on your own and free go together? Right? That's when things really get expensive and you miss mom and dad paying your cell phone bill, or you miss mom and dad paying for the water. So as you can see on here, it lists their abilities, their wants, their needs, and their grades. So their abilities, we talked to, this is again where you can talk to your kids about it. You can say, look at their abilities. What are they good at? Give me an example of something your kids are good at, or that you were good at as a kid.
Computers.
What was that?
Computers.
Computers. Good at computers, absolutely. That's a huge skill. What are some others? Computers.
Piano.
Piano. Yeah, that's a skill, absolutely. They're good at the piano. Any others?
Dance.
What is that?
Dance. Dance.
Dance, yes. Dance. I have an 8-year-old son who, he's really social. Like, he makes friends really easy. He was always that kid on the playground that would go up to any kid and like gather kids and they'd start a game. And when we had more kids after him, I realized that was a skill. Like, it wasn't just necessarily being a kid. Like, oh, it's so easy for kids. They can just go play with anybody. But then I realized it was like his skill to gather people and make everybody feel included and make friends. He was nice. And then their wants. What are they interested in? So what are some things? So maybe they're good at math, or they're good at dance, or they're good, they're good readers. And then their wants. What are they interested in? Sometimes those are the same things. Sometimes they're not. So you said your daughter or your son's really good at dance. I have a daughter who is very interested in dance. I would never say this to her, but maybe not one of her abilities. She took after me that I'm like highly uncoordinated and extremely clumsy. Like, so much so that so my daughter, we took her in to get like her hips x-rayed when she was like 18 months old because she kept falling. Like she hits a certain speed and she will trip. So we got her hips x-rayed and she was fine. And our doctor, when we took her into the appointment, he was like, just tell me if could it be that she's just uncoordinated? And my husband was like, absolutely. Yeah. Like, my wife, super uncoordinated. So I hope, that maybe in the practice, she will have better luck in dance than I do. Right now, she's doing a lot on a balance beam. And I'm so glad that balance beam was like this far off the ground, because she doesn't make it all the way to the end. So next is their needs. So what are their priorities? So talking about needs with kids, why do you think, like, what would be a need? Anyone can think of something? Housing. But as far as like, sorry, let me clarify better. So like need would be like they need, like my son, my oldest son, he needs to be with people. He needs social interaction. Or like some kids need, let's see, sorry. Oh, go back. Okay. Some kids need downtime. So like they get overstimulated and they start to have like problems with anxiety. Or like they get home from school, they're not the kids that run out and go play with friends. They need some downtime in between school and another activity, but that's an important need that they have. Some kids don't do well in competitive environments. So a need, maybe being careful to steer clear of, I said, things that are very competitive. Like you mentioned your daughter or son that dances. There's like competitive leagues of dancing. Sorry. And so I have a friend who, her daughter, she put her in a competition league for dancing for 1 year, and it was really hard on her daughter. Like the constant practices and the pressure, and she knew that her daughter just wanted to dance. She didn't necessarily want to compete. So any other needs you can think of that your child or any kids you see that they might have that you need to take into consideration when they're, what we're doing is we're talking about like maybe a career or something that they might go to in the future. It's like they have like their needs, their abilities, their wants, their needs, and then their grades. So if you can see down here at the bottom of page 3, it talks about grades. So if you're going through this with your student or with your kid, when we go through in high schools, we have them, we say, think honestly what kind of student that you are. So the first one being like, I'm excellent, then good, so-so, and poor. They select it, and then they turn the page to page 4. And they can then choose a career based on their grades that they currently have. So if they were a poor student, they can only choose careers from box number 1. If they were an excellent student, they can choose a career from any of these boxes. And we know that not every career here is listed, but we say, pick one that's closest to the one that you're the most interested in. Now, what if you're going through this with your kid, and they say this, I'm not good at anything. What would your response as a parent be? Right. Sometimes, like I said, it's not easy being a kid. Sometimes as adults, we kind of forget what it's like to be. Sometimes I have to remind myself, my son's in 3rd grade, and when something happens to him on the playground, and he comes home like it's like life and death, and to me, it's so easy for me to be like, oh my gosh, that's nothing. Especially nothing in compared to my problem. But then I have to realize it almost is life and death to him as a 3rd grader. His best friend told him he didn't want to be friends with him anymore. That is maybe one of the more catastrophic things that has happened to him in his young 3rd grade life. So sometimes when our kids say stuff like, I'm not good at anything, it's hard for them to gain perspective. So as a parent where we have perspective, we can see, we can help them. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about some of your wants and your needs and your abilities. And you can have that conversation with them and maybe help them come to the conclusion of what they're good at. So we picked our career on page 5. Let's go to work. They pick their career. And then go ahead and turn the page to page 6. So we tell the kids, like I said, if you're going over this with your teenager or a young adult in your life, we tell them, imagine what your life is going to look like at 28 years old. At 28, what career are you going to be? And they just pick their career. And then at 28, we go through some of these questions. Are they married or are they single? Do they have kids? Are they going to stay home or is their spouse going to stay home? Are they both going to work? And then we go over some of the consequences of those decisions. So if they chose that, one spouse was going to stay home, then they can't include their spouse's income. Or if they chose that both spouses were going to work, then they got to figure out childcare. We make them go through a budget for food and clothing. As you can see here on page 7, we also start talking about what kind of homes they're going to be in. We'll get to that in a second. So now with your younger kids, you've got your little kids. This is kind of geared towards your older kids. So let's talk about some teaching moments with our younger kids. So this is Darian, and she says, why does Emily have to go to the babysitter after school? Now, I don't know about you guys, but me as a parent, I get asked 100 questions all the time from my kids, and I am super good at ignoring them. And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. And they'll be like, that wasn't the question. I'll be like, sorry, what? So this could be such an easy question to be like, because you're making dinner, you're busy, like, because she just has to go to the babysitter. So that's one answer. But what would be a better answer? If this was you in this situation, how would you answer this? Thinking of how you're going to turn this into a financial teaching moment. Right, so maybe start talking about like your family's like priorities. Be like, so your dad and I chose to both work. We can talk about, you can take it wherever you want. Like, we choose to do this because we like to go, maybe your family values traveling. And if we want to do the fun things that we do, it does require that both mom and dad work. And so, well, if you were Emily's parents, right, that sent her to the babysitter, we both go to work, so you go to the babysitter for a little bit after school. Or if you're Darian's parents, you can be like, you know what, we chose that one parent was going to stay home while another parent worked, and you can talk about your value system behind that. And then maybe the things that you sacrifice financially to make that happen. So whatever your family and your family's values are, you can maybe use this moment to start kind of introducing that concept and talking to them a little bit about it. It doesn't have to go crazy in depth, but this can just be a good moment to start introducing concepts. So rent or own, bottom of page 7. So with our older kids, we start talking about the differences between renting or owning. Because a lot of times you'll hear people that will say like, don't rent, it's just throwing away money. Now, we're also learning really quickly that millennials don't feel that way. So what are some benefits of renting? Why wouldn't they feel that way? Absolutely. They're like, I don't know how to fix a stove. I don't know how to fix a leaky pipe. Like, I rent, that's my landlord's problem. Absolutely. What's another benefit of renting?
It's not permanent.
It's not permanent. Exactly, and that's one of the bigger things. Like, yeah, they can live somewhere here for a little bit, but then they can go somewhere else and experience something else. They're not going to be stuck in that house or have to sell it when they want to move. They have much more flexibility. Also, so renting definitely has its benefits. Owning has its benefits. We use this as an opportunity to start talking about equity that you can build in your home. A lot of, like I said, even if you're talking to your kids about basic money principles, we're pretty surprised when we go into high schools how many students don't know what equity is. So as a 17-year-old, they understand math, they can understand equity. So using this as an opportunity to start talking about equity with your kids. Oh, sorry. Here's our benefits to renting. Here's our benefits to owning. Now, for our younger kids introducing this concept, Jake asks, why do I always have to mow the lawn? Because Dad doesn't want to. Right? So again, keeping that financial teaching in mind, because my inclination would be like, why do I always have to do the laundry? Like, again, not the most effective way to teach finances, but how would you guys answer this? How would you turn this into a financial teaching moment? Why do I always have to mow the lawn?
We're a family, we all live here, we all benefit from living in this house, so we all have to pitch in and contribute to taking care of the house.
Absolutely. Like contributing or earning. We saw with the King City, like their kids had an allowance, so they did certain chores that their parents didn't just buy them things, so they taught them the value of money through things like mowing the lawn. My son comes in all the time and he's like, can I have this? And I'll be like, absolutely. What do you want to do to earn it? You can't have it. Because sometimes, at least as me as a parent, I try not to tell my kids no when it comes to a lot of things, but I try to help them see how they can earn it themselves. Try to have a more positive, try to change their way of thinking about, yes, I can have something after I do this. Or after I work hard to do this, yes, I can have it. Instead of feeling like, I can never have something. So you could use it like this. Say, great, you can mow the lawn. You can pull weeds. What are some chores that your kids do?
Dishes.
Dishes. That's That's my favorite chore for the kids to do. Do the dishes. Clean the bathrooms. Yes. So weird that those are those chores that we don't want to do. I never understood why my mom never dusted the blinds growing up. I was like, why do I always have to dust the blinds? And I'm like, my kids aren't quite old enough to dust the blinds, but I've like almost got like a countdown in my head that I'm like, one more year, and that kid's doing blinds. I hate doing blinds. Alright, so these are just some chores that you can do with your kids, start teaching them how they can earn money. Next, on page 8, so for our older kids. Again, they're 28 years old. Like I said, this is a fun activity to go through with them. It's also a good way to gauge what they do and they don't know about subjects. Because maybe they can tell you what insurance is, but then if you ask them, okay, what does insurance cover? Or what's liability insurance? They may not be able to tell you that. So we're like, hey, at 28 years old, what kind of car do you envision having? Now, one of the important things that we introduce here is that you can see up in this little like khaki colored box on page 8, it says, which car can you afford? This is where we start talking about like a healthy budget. People recommend, I don't know who people are, but like smart people will say, recommend that you don't go over 15% of your monthly budget for your car expenses. So what are some car expenses? Gas, insurance, maintenance, not just a car payment, right? All those things that go on with the car, not to go over 15%. And if it's you and your spouses, you have a combined monthly income, that's 15% for both you and your spouse, not just for you. Because sometimes we'll have people come into the branch, and as I worked as a loan officer, they'd be like, we'd talk about budgets and stuff, and they'd be like, oh, 15%, great. And they'd immediately get a number in their head for just a car payment, and then just their car payment, not taking into consideration anyone else that was in their household that was contributing to that monthly income. So it's important to remember, okay, how much can I afford that 15% that's on my car expenses, and then not to go over that amount. So we make them pick a car for them, and we make them pick a car for their spouse. We also try to help them understand that, because on here they do have the option of like taking public transportation, but we're like, if you're gonna have a car, don't have like your wife take public transportation. Because sometimes I'll be like, she can take the bus, and I'll be like, okay, well if you're gonna get a car, it's probably fair that she gets a car. So, and they can choose public transportation if they want. So they pick their car, and we talk about new versus used. So a lot of kids know what a new and a used car is, and a lot of kids think, I just want a new car. Why don't people just buy new cars? What are some benefits of a new car? That's always the very first response. It smells like a new car. Which, no, it cannot be bought, so I get it, right? Well, technically the new car can, but yes, your new car smell. What's the other benefit of a new car? Warranties, those are so nice. Right, so if anything happens within a certain amount of mileage, then they will fix it. That's a big bonus. Anybody here not car people, like can't fix things in their car? So both of my hands are up. Right? So sometimes that's a really big benefit, is having a warranty. Also, you're the first person to ever drive it. There's going to be less problems. But what are some other benefits to having a used car? It's awesome. Cost. Oh, maybe it's an awesome cost. Yes. So the price is right. So it's less expensive. This can be a good place where you talk to your kids about depreciation. Again, you got your 17-year-old kid. They can absolutely understand what that is. And the only thing they have in their mind is that they want a new car. And I will also tell you, so I was a loan officer for 4 years, and one of the biggest mistakes that I saw kids making was that, so let's say they come in, they got a full-time job at 19. They're making more money than they ever have. They're living at home with their parents. So what are the things they're not paying? Housing, utilities, sometimes groceries, sometimes gas, sometimes their cell phone, sometimes their insurance. Sometimes they don't have a lot of bills. So they come in with this full-time job thinking they can afford this really big car payment. Now, how long is the average loan term? 5 years. 5 years, yeah. It's anywhere from like 5 to 8 years, depending on how you finance it. Mountain America doesn't go above
brand new cars will do
84 months. So,
but brand new
brand new cars. So, let's say it's 5 years. Do you think their life is going to change from 18 to, what's 18 about 23? From 18 to 23? Right. That's a very transitional point in life. So maybe at 23, they could even be married, but they probably are going to be living on their own, depending what kind of, maybe you like your kids, maybe you want them to stay home. I don't want mine to stay home. So, that maybe they're living on their own, now they're paying utilities, now they're paying groceries, and that huge car payment is now a huge burden. And what happens if maybe they can't pay it and it gets repossessed? What does it do to their credit? Their credit that they hardly have any of destroys it. It's hard. Or they miss a few payments on it trying to catch up. If you hardly have any credit, you're trying to get credit established, and if you miss one payment, it can have a dramatic effect on your credit. So all of a sudden they're young, they're 22, 23, and they made this one poor decision when they were 18, and it's going to have pretty big effect on them for the next few years. That's unfair. So whenever I have, and I don't know if you do this, Amanda, I'm sure you do, you have young kids that are coming in that want this big brand new car, this really big car payment. Again, I can't deny them for it. They qualify for it, But I usually try to have a conversation with them about it, be like, all right, let's talk about this. But should I be the one having that conversation with them? Honestly? No. Right? I can kind of softly be like, maybe you might want to consider this. But as a parent, that should have been a conversation you already had with your kids. So, again, these are the things we go over with car maintenance. Because people say, oh, maintenance. Well, let's talk about car maintenance, all these things. How many of you guys ever had to pay any of these? Yes. My husband just changed the rear brake pads in the van, and I'm not kidding, 2 days later the front ones started squeaking. Oh no. I was like, oh, guess what you get to do for 2 hours on Sunday? And then all these repairs, again, these are the things you need to take into consideration if you are going to buy a used car. Also, you've got kids on the other end. So you've got the kids on the spectrum that are like, I want the brand new car. And then you got kids on the other end of the spectrum who are like, I'm going to buy the cheapest car I can. Yeah, I knew kids like that. Now, that's when you get to talk about what? Car repairs. Like, oh, okay, I appreciate that you are wanting to save money. But let's talk about some of the things you're also going to have to save for if you buy this $300 car. I drove a $300 car in high school, and it did not have reverse. So, it can be done, but sacrifices have to be made. Okay, so now we'll see how we can kind of help introduce this concept to younger kids. So this is Anita, and she asks, your car breaks down all the time. Why can't you just get a new car? So she's not super nice, but some other lessons you need to teach Anita. But how could you turn this into a teaching moment?
Take care of what you have, invest in something that lasts longer, or something to buy a new car, just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that maybe you're capable of fixing your car. Maybe their parents fix the car all the time. They're really good with cars. They're going to choose the money to go put towards something else. For my husband to fix the brake pads, I think it cost us like $65. If we took it in, it's going to cost us around like $300. That's a big difference. So maybe you can use this to start talking about, doing things yourself. Maybe that's one way. Again, priorities that you have with your family, different skill sets. Maybe you can start introducing that to your kids. Like, hey, if as an adult you don't want to have to pay for these really expensive things, maybe you can come out and start learning with me on the car. It's a good place to start by teaching them how to hold a flashlight, right? Anytime that my dad ever, I went out to help my dad, I just learned really well how to not move a flashlight. And that's it. So maybe teach them a little bit better than that. Any other things you guys can think of?
Yes, we don't have the money right now. Paying for your brace.
That's a great one. Absolutely.
She should have.
Yeah. See, that's very true though, right? You'd be like, braces cost money, and I think sometimes parents, we don't want to make our kids feel guilty to be like, well, we had to drive an old car because you needed braces, right? Yeah. But so you don't have to but you can still use that in a way that's still to be like, hey, you know what? We have our needs and we have our wants. And talk to them, talking about the difference between needs and wants. We need braces. We need to go to the dentist. We don't need a brand new car. This car works just fine. So now let's go to page 9. Page 9, be sure to insure. This is where we talk about not only auto insurance, talk about health and life insurance. So a lot of times our kids, they don't, so maybe they'll see you make, you know what, this probably isn't true actually anymore. Because like when I was growing up, I'd come home from school, and if my mom had like the kitchen table full of papers and stamps, like she was paying bills, I would like immediately leave. Like she was gonna be in the worst mood that day. So, but I saw her paying bills. Do our kids these days see us paying bills? Not really, right? Because we only do them on our phone or they're set up on auto pay. Another thing with life insurance, that comes right out of your check. So they don't see you making that payment, maybe they see you making the copay. But we start talking about health and life insurance. Also, when we go into high schools, we tell them, if you choose to start smoking, it's gonna cost you an average of $200 extra a month on your health insurance. And they're not just gonna ask you if you smoke. They can tell through your blood and they can tell through a urine test. A lot of times they don't even ask you, because they just wait for the test results. So, or if they do ask you and you lie, and that's insurance fraud and your insurance drops you, that's a good place where you can start talking about private insurance and how affordable that is. So, talking about health and life insurance, again, these sometimes kids like, yeah, I know what health insurance is. It like helps us cover if I break my phone or something. Be like, okay, well, who pays for it? How do we pay for it? With your older kids, you can start talking about things that come out of their paychecks. Then we talk about homeowners and renters insurance. So, as you can see on page 9, owning is $150 for insurance, and renting is $13. Who can tell me why?
When you rent, you're only covering the inside things you own.
Yep. When you rent, it's just the items inside the house. Homeowners and insurance covers all the structural things in your house. So, like if it floods and drywall needs to be replaced and the carpet needs to be replaced, insurance pays for that. But if you're renting, it's just going to cover the things that were damaged in the flood. Like, I was going to say a boom box. I doubt they have very many boom boxes. So, like, your iPad. Okay. It's going to damage your iPad. Okay. So, how to introduce this to younger kids? So, this is Andrea. She says, why do you get up early to exercise? How can you turn this into, like, a financially related teaching moment?
Take care of your health. Later on, you won't have so many expensive health issues.
Absolutely. Is health insurance expensive in this country?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, right? So it's a little expensive. Things they're going to have to think about. Certain things you can start introducing with your kids. But yeah, I take care of my body. So yeah, we don't have those expenses or anything else you guys can think of. Maybe taking care of things in general. So doing repairs when they're needed. So when my brake started squeaking, I'm like, oh, I really don't want to take off my husband today. I'll wait till he drives it next time and be like, oh, are those squeaking? Right? Be like, but then what happens the longer you let things go? It gets worse and worse, and therefore it gets more and more expensive. So now page 10, back to our older kids. Built-in costs. So now they get to live on their own. They decide they're going to live on their own. And guess what? You get to do so many things when you're on your own. You get to pay for so many things. What are some of these built-in costs that it has listed there? TV, utilities, your cell phone. Taxes. Oh, yes. So, yeah, we go through TV and internet and gas and electricity, all these things. When we get here, always like, have any of you guys, I don't know, this isn't very often, but have any of your parents ever told you to turn off a light? Or to shut the something door, right? So it's like, and like everyone's hand goes up, right? And as an adult, all of a sudden you're like, okay, that's why my parents always told me to turn off the lights. Or that's why my dad used to always say, we're not heating the outside, or we're not cooling the outside. And for some reason, I didn't really get it. Bright child. But, right? Because now when you're paying for it on your own, right? If you run the AC and you want your house to be 65, that's fine, but you're going to have a pretty hefty bill coming up when utilities are coming to you, right? And then your telephone, and then taxes. So as you can see here, at the bottom of page 10, we had them write their monthly income, including their spouses. And then it's broken into brackets. So let's say they make between $3,500 and $4,900 a month. Then we have them multiply it by 20%. And that's how much they have to pay in taxes. And we always know if the kids do this exercise right, if they say, I think I got it wrong. You're like, why? It's like, this is way too high. Oh, like, okay, you did it right. Yeah, you did it right. If you think you're paying, if that number seems way too crazy, then you did it right. Then we talk about taxes. We ask kids, what do taxes pay for? What do taxes pay for?
The schools, hospitals,
Yeah, your police, paramedics, police, firemen, roads, all these wonderful things, all these great things they get to enjoy, but they actually don't see, like, sometimes they like, all they hear really as kids is complain about taxes, their parents complaining about taxes. And then she says, why can't I use my cell phone data? Have any of your kids ever asked this question? My kids ask, this is like something unfortunate, my kids probably understood from a way too young of age. Like, don't use the data. How would you turn this into a financial teaching moment?
Well, just cost and screen time. Kids limited screen time. More data costs.
Yeah.
Well, you're already paying for Wi-Fi.
Exactly, yeah. So maybe about how using things efficiently. So if you have Wi-Fi at home, you don't need to be using your data. Okay, what are you doing right now? Can that be done at home? Is this really, again, back to those needs and those wants? Do you need to be paying for data right now? Is being on their phone and playing a game because they don't want to wait and be bored in line a need or a want? A want, absolutely. So if they're like, okay, well, you don't need to do that, but, so if you're going to, then you're going to need to pay for it if you feel like it's a need. So going over on cell phone data, do you guys think you should just yell at your kids for or make them pay for? Right, it's a personal preference, it's a personal parental preference. But if my kids ever, I have a son that one time, he was probably 5, so this was probably 3 years ago, but he knew not to use the phone because it was going to cost money where we were, and he snuck it in the back seat, and he was playing it while we were driving in the car, and so I thought he was asleep, because he was in the car right behind me. And so I was all happy and fine about it until my husband got a notification on his phone that was you've reached 90% of your data. I was like, what? We're not even, oh crap. Right? So, but we had him do extra chores to pay for the data overages. So it was a lesson that he could be like, hey, fine. Yeah, if you want to, and we'll even use that example to this day. If he ever asks for the phone, be like, well, do you want to pay for it? Because it's going to cost you probably, because every time we go over on our data, it costs us $15. So if you want to go home and we give him a list of chores that he can do that will equal $15, which is a lot of chores, for this 5-minute time that we're online. And luckily his answer is usually no. So give and take, page 11. So these are things that aren't necessarily, here talking about our needs and our wants. These aren't necessarily things that you have to have, but there are a lot of things that we want to have. So we have vacations on here, we can have the kids choose from a vacation, eating out, charity if they want to do it. And we also use this as an opportunity that we talk about values, which can be important to talk about with your kids, to be like, maybe your kid is spending all their money on eating out, but what they really, really want to be doing is saving up for a ski pass for the winter. You know that's their passion, and that's what they love, but they're spending all their money on eating out. So we talk about, is your money reflecting your values? Maybe you would prefer to pack your lunch and be able to buy a ski pass because that's your passion. So we just kind of talk about, this could be a good opportunity to talk about your values with your kids. Oh, again, this page, your charities. Now then, Drew, I love eating at this restaurant. Why can't we eat here all the time? Or my kid was like, can we eat out tonight? I'm a really good cook. No, I don't want your dinner. Can we eat out? How can you turn this into a financial teaching moment?
Get them involved with the grocery budget, show them how much each meal costs at home compared to inside.
That's a very good idea. So teach it hey, it costs, I've got a family of 5. If we go to a restaurant that has a waiter, like a sit-down restaurant, we're paying $50. That's really expensive. And that's a great idea. You could sit there and teach them, hey, so this is what $50 buys this one meal. This $50 bought you literal Kraft macaroni and cheese. Like, that's you can order at restaurants, or a really cheap grilled cheese sandwich. But if you go to the grocery store, look at all of the groceries we could have bought and how many meals we could make out of it versus just going and eating out. And like the King family who involved their family in their finance, again, that's a personal preference as a parent. We don't say like, you have to do this to teach your kids about money. You can do it in a lot of different ways, but one that we showed with this presentation is the King family that involved their family. So you can involve your kids that way. And then page 12, budgeting and saving. So if they chose a career that was like they wanted to be a doctor, then we're like, awesome, now you get to pay how much in student loans? Not middle college. Like $840, right? That's a lot of money a month. But we talk about student loans, we talk about their education, we talk about 401ks, so you can go like, see what your kids know about a 401k. See if your kids know the difference between an IRA and a 401k. And then also emergency funds. How important are emergency funds? Very important, right? The only thing that you can really plan on is the unplanned. Things will happen, we'll talk about that in just a second too. So this is Daniel, he says, I really want an iPad. All of my friends have their own iPad. And that's just not an iPad, it can be whatever you want to put in there, like a bike or a new video game. How could you turn this into a financial teaching moment? Oh, yes you can. How would you like to earn it? I used my example too early. All right. Yes. It's a great one. Anyone else, any other ones you can think of? Our point really with these, when we talk about these questions that our young kids ask, is that yes, our kids ask lots of questions. Sometimes it is the easiest, especially for me, just again to be like, just because. Or no, you can't. That's it. Don't talk to me right now. Like, so it can be easy to do that, but taking time to realize when there are financial teaching moments, taking the time to take a second to be like, okay, I do want to teach my kids about money. That's a value and a priority that I have as a parent. How can I be on the lookout for these? And then wild card. So page 13. So what we do is we give the kids a dice. We give them 2 dice and they roll it. So let's say that they roll like a 3 and a 4. So then they go to 34. And 34 is, you earned a promotion at work. You get 5% of your salary added to your income at the end of the month. That's a great wild card. They might roll a 45. You run over your neighbor's newly planted tree. You pay $85 to replace it. So it's just look at the dice, right? Whatever one they get to pick, some are good, some are bad. But how many of you guys have encountered a wild card this year? Something you didn't anticipate paying for, and you got to pay for, right? And so many adults, right? You want to give an example of a wild card?
Dead.
What?
Car battery dead.
Oh, car battery's dead? Oh, that's the worst. Like you go to turn it on, you're like, cool, battery's dead. Kid left a light on. What?
We just got one. Our AC went out in our car.
Oh, your AC goes out in your car. What's another one?
Health, medical expenses.
Health, medical expenses. My son broke his wrist last week. Any other ones? We had a really fun one. My husband cut a hole in our cat. So that was a fun one. Our cat's long haired and has like matted fur. And I usually always take the cat in to get groomed, but it was really bothering him. And so he, being an expert at grooming animals, picked up this mat of fur, picked it up like this, and then cut straight across.
Oh no.
And so I was holding the cat, so when he cut her, she kind of flinched a little bit, but then when he let it go, there was this hole in her. And I was just like, oh, take the cat. Take the cat. And the cat, she was bugged by it, but she wasn't freaking out. So we had to go get her stitches. So it was 5 stitches, and it was $300 for 5 stitches. And I was like, oh, cool. I mean, we just had $300. We didn't know what to do with it anyway. So we were like, let's cut a hole in the cat. So yeah, so our wild cards, right? Needing an emergency fund, these are things that are going to happen. So at the very end, so you turn the page, age 14 and 15, we have them go through all their expenses. We have them add it up. And then they subtract, like all of us are used to doing, subtracting all their expenses from their income. And then we ask them these questions. These are even good questions to ask yourself. Also this, another page. So right here, all these expenses that they have to go through and add up. You can even just go through this list with your kid and be like, what is their understanding of all of these? Ask them questions, just pull this list right here and be like, you don't want to go through the whole book? You got a checklist right here, things maybe you can go through with them. And then we ask them, so how are you doing money-wise? Are you in the black with a positive number or in the red with a negative number? Are you pleased with your financial situation as a 28-year-old? Or as a 35-year-old? Or as a 40-year-old? You can ask yourself that. Are your finances as listed here the result of chance or choice? If you chose to get that huge truck and had to pay so much more gas, is that chance or choice? Choice. How much did your grades affect the outcome? How much will your grades and education affect your real life outcome? So if you guys remember, they could choose a career based on the grades they currently had. So, were the choices they were making at 18 having an impact on their 28-year-old self? Absolutely, which is one of the big points that we try to drive home, right? The decisions you're making now can have a lasting effect on the rest of your life. And then what can you do in real life to avoid the financial problems encountered in this exercise? So if you want to, you go through this book with your kid and they are negative, and you can have them go back through this book. Be like, okay, let's talk about some of the things we can change. So maybe when they get to that point in real life, so maybe it was that really high car payment. So then maybe when they turn 18, they get to that point, maybe hopefully it's something they'll remember. Like, you know what, I remember making this poor choice in this activity. Maybe this isn't something I want to repeat in real life. Thank you guys so much for coming. I have Cassie with me. She works in the financial education department with me as well. Amanda Morton, she works in our Daybreak branch. We're happy to answer any questions that you guys have, but thank you guys for coming.